Boys and girls, welcome back. We are here yet again.
Welcome to the lounge.
Yeah, man, it's late, but for those of you who don't, well, I obviously not. Most of you don't know us personally, but yours truly, Hunter here. I'm a bit of a night owl. I don't sleep a lot, and most of it is because I'm usually up watching movies. I just don't sleep very much. So a lot of these reviews, you're gonna see them posted, 5, 6 a.m. You're like, why is it posted so early? This is why, because I don't sleep. And Colin and Scott won't be on every review. I have about 60 movies that are just in my notebook that I haven't recorded stuff for, so I'll probably go through slowly over the next couple of weeks and do that. But
You're a bit of a Blackula, if you will.
a black a Count Chocula, if you will, and I will. But we're going to talk about Carrie here real quick. But before we get into that, of course, go ahead, if you haven't done it yet, hit subscribe on our SoundCloud channel, soundcloud.com/TheRealPineapple. Go ahead and share us with your friends, and check us out on Facebook at The Real Pineapple. Starting to add stuff to that page, and we'll also have our YouTube channel up here in the next couple weeks with our animated reviews. For those of you who don't have the time to listen to our beautifully long audio.
Now, I will say this: the ones we've been doing lately that are actually making the cut are significantly shorter than ones we used to do. We had in the beginning, we had ones last about probably an hour.
We're around 35, 40, 45 minutes on some. That is true. But
they would get pretty long.
But we've cut it down to like 15, 20 minutes.
That's absolutely, yeah, that's I feel like that's our...
And that's what we're shooting for, but you gotta understand, like, especially with like something like Spider-Man 2 coming out, Amazing Spider-Man 2, and Godzilla, those reviews are gonna be longer, because those are, summer blockbusters.
Captain America, which you want to go check out.
Yeah, go check out our Captain America Winter Soldier review, and we're actually probably gonna get into probably do an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Captain America review, talking about this new episode they have, and how it's gonna tie in. But anyways... enough about all that other jibba jabba. Yeah. Let's talk about a movie that I was really anticipating, but unfortunately, as things kind of go, got busy, didn't get a chance to see it in theaters. Found it on Redbox. I was like, oh yeah. So to explain a little bit of my history of this movie, this was the first horror movie unquote that I ever saw. This is based on, of course, on the Stephen King novel that he wrote in I want to say he wrote this in the 70s. I mean, he wrote this a while ago. But with, bullying being such a big thing, especially now, because everyone wants to, scream bullying about whatever. And it is quite an epidemic now. This book is actually probably more relevant than it's ever been. So, of course, when things like this occur, there's going to be a remake. So they get...
When any successful movie occurs, there's going to be a remake.
Yeah, it was actually, the original I want to say came out in 80, I want to say it was 81. I'm sure I'm wrong on that, forgive me, but it was around that time, and it was actually a huge success financially. It won a bunch of awards, really put Stephen King on the forefront as far as his movies being able to be adapted into full-length films. So it's interesting that they kind of took... I don't even want to say it took long, because they actually did a TV remake of this. I want to say in the early 90s. Then they did this horrible sequel called The Rage Carrie 2. And the only reason I know that is because I rented it at Blockbuster when I was like 15. It was a piece of shit. So this is a remake, essentially, and it's got one of my favorite young actresses, Chloe Grace Moretz. You'll probably know her as Hit Girl from Kick-Ass. Don't see Kick-Ass 2 if you haven't seen it. It'll just piss you off. And then Julianne Moore, who plays her mom, who we just saw in Don John, was the last thing we saw.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of a different change this year from Don John to this, but they play Chloe. They play Chloe. Jesus, I'm ready to call her Brown. They play Carrie and Margaret White, respectfully, and. So have you seen the original movie, Scott?
I have not.
You have not? Okay, well, as someone, and this is kind of right there with Silence of the Lambs as far as some of my early introduction to cinema. So I was really intrigued to see how they're going to handle this. So, the one thing about the original is that they were definitely burdened by the time. They just didn't have the money to put in the effects and all that crap that is written clearly in the book. They just didn't have the budget to film, or the technology to film a lot of this shit. I don't know how you felt about it, but some of the CG in this, some of it is hokey. There are points where you kind of see it and you're like, that doesn't look very good. But it does a pretty good job of creating an atmosphere where it's pretty eerie. So when things do start going down, you're like, oh shit, that was awesome. So, yeah, what did you think? What were your first impressions?
First impressions were, like, going into it, I didn't think Julianne Moore was going to be, like, could sell scary. Like, I know she's a great actress, but I didn't know if I was going to believe her. I feel like the first act, kind of getting to know her, very generic, like, oh, new kid. It's like very much building towards this, like, revenge type movie. And, like, that's kind of what you know kind of going in. They started off letting you know pretty early. Like, you got the psychotic mom, like, I don't even know what you would call it. Just, like, extreme, like, I don't even know if, like, versus that. She wasn't even, like, it's, like, super religious. She was, but she would, like, make up her own, like, things for Carrie to do and, like, try to convince her that certain things were in the Bible. And there's a part in this movie where Carrie does, like, fire back at her and be like, no, it doesn't even say that in there. And she starts, like, quoting Bible verses back to her. I thought that was a pretty cool part.
So there's this movie. So there's this movie called The Preacher's Daughter, which I actually would love to do a review on. And I can almost guarantee none of you have heard of this movie. But the cool thing about The Preacher's Daughter is someone that grew up in church, which I'm sure a lot of you guys did. That movie's a cautionary tale of this is what happens when you get too religious, when you're just so by the book of the Bible or the Quran or whatever you believe in and follow. If anything, you run a risk of just turning your kid off and just, like, alienating them if you don't allow them to go out and have fun.
Crazy, no matter it doesn't really matter what she was.
True, but I mean, I think this movie, I mean, it's not a huge, like, oh my god, religion is bad, but it is also saying, like, look, practice religion if you want, but understand there is a limit.
Do you feel like they had to add the, like, exorcism type feel to where? Because a lot of, like, I feel like scary movies and dealing with ghosts has something to do with some sort of, like, religious factor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I feel like maybe we're at that point, I mean, where it's been done so much that you just kind of are like, it's almost an eye roll now. It's like, we gotta do this again. But this was one of the first movies to really knock it out of the park in that way. I mean, I think of that in The Exorcist when I immediately think of movies that deal with the supernatural and that deal with religious aspects. So I'm a little more forgiving on it with this, but I will admit to you, it's been beaten to the ground, like, to the point where it is a trope. But yeah, Julianne Moore, one thing I will say about this that this has over the original is, in the original, the mom, she's just a religious nut. She's almost like a one-note character. But in this movie, Julianne Moore, who really doesn't give enough credit for being as good of an actress as she is. I mean, she's a cutter. She seems...
She was really intense in this movie.
I mean,
like,
she was intense.
A lot better than I thought. I was over my expectations for her.
I mean, she was really intense. She's definitely like has these moments where she's clearly schizophrenic. I mean, there's just all these moments where when she's on screen, I legitimately cringe. I'm just like, I don't know what the hell this girl is thinking. I don't know what she's gonna do next, and it keeps you uneasy and on edge the whole movie. And the other thing is Chloe Grace Moretz. It's gonna sound so weird to say. It's weird to see her from the first Kick-Ass and see her now because she's clearly growing up. She's out of that awkward phase because they're trying to dress her down and make her look like a plain girl, and it just, that was one problem I had. It just doesn't work with her because she's cute. She's a very pretty girl. So when all these guys are kind of walking past her, you're like, really? Like, not one dude would recognize, like, would stop and go like, oh, hey, it's a little, you do kind of have to suspend your disbelief. I mean, Lord knows I've chased after far less, but, but just to throw that out there.
Note
there. Yeah, just a personal note. Yeah, just gonna, I don't want to get carried away with myself, but, 100 pun, but thank you. But
you should put like a sound
actually,
sound bite in there.
Actually, I'm planning on doing that actually, but so I mean, Carrie's at school, and this is one thing I'll say, like, as the movie got started. So if you've seen the original or even know about it, you know that infamous scene where she has her period, like her first period in the shower, and she freaks out, and all the kids are making fun of her. When that scene happens in here, it's fucking, like, it's brutal to a point where you're like, Jesus, okay, that's fucked up.
Like, borderline unbelievable in, like, a high school setting. Like, I feel like people, like, there's some evil people, like, girls out there, but I just, like, to a certain point, it was unbelievable. Like, they did a great job of it, and I will say that, but I think maybe it was a bit over the top.
As someone that has had...
To be ultra-critical.
As someone that's had... I mean, not something that bad, but has had an experience where they've cried and has had everyone laugh at them, and that was in middle school, I was actually able to buy this, and it kind of made me feel even worse for them. Like, oh, you poor girl. Like, and I like the fact that this movie kind of plays up the fact that kids are fucking mean, and I don't think parents get that sometimes. I think we kind of are almost jaded to the fact, like, oh, it's just growing up. Kids are fucking evil, man, and especially in high school. Like, that's kind of that's almost like you're breaking into the real world almost, is how it is high school. And that scene, when it happens, you're like, damn. I will admit, it did, if I'll give you anything, I felt like maybe it went on a little too long.
What was the little chant?
Oh god damn. Plug It Up, that was it. I think it was Plug It Up.
Something
yeah.
like that.
But yeah, when I mean, it does it becomes borderline Salem witch hunt-esque. Like, it gets pretty crazy on that. And after that, the movie really takes off from there.
I will say that, like, the anticipation of the revenge, because you kind of know what's coming, is, like, what I really enjoyed about this movie. Like, yeah. I feel like the anticipation for it and the building of it, and I like the way that, like, in the second act, she was able to pretty quickly get control of her mom. And, like, that was kind of like, I don't know, as a viewer, it was, like, relieving, I guess you could say. But, like, I think they did that part really well.
One thing I did love is I love Judy Greer, who's on Archer right now, playing Cheryl.
Yeah, she was great in this.
She plays a gym teacher whose name escapes me right now. Let me see. Do I have it? Of course not. Why would I? Judy Greer. God damn it. Judy Greer. She played. I'm gonna butcher this. Miss
Desjardins.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Miss Desjardins. There you go.
Like, what kind of name is that?
It's a really weird name, but she was great in this. I mean, and the main girls who
it's like a Mean Girls.
Yeah, it's like an extreme Mean Girls. Yeah. Like the main girls who really just, like, tortured Carrie and them. They're throwing tampons at her and shit. She's making them run, like, suicides, which are a pain in the ass anyway, let alone, like, and they kind of imply that's pretty fucking hot outside. So she's making these girls run suicides, and there's this one girl, and I can't, and again, they don't do a good job of saying what these girls' names are. That is one thing about this movie. These girls just kind of show up for their roles and then just kind of go away. But you'll know who the main girl is, like the main mean girl, the one who doesn't have a change of heart. She goes up to Judy Greer, is pretty much like, fuck this. Why should I have to, suffer for what I did to Carrie. You're like,
I like how dark that part got.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that, how far they went with that, and like just showing that such side of her. I thought that was really well done.
Well, what I appreciate is that it did take me back to high school in the way that there are all those kids who just feel they're entitled to not have to do shit. And so when she's going off like, whatever, fuck that girl, she's nothing to me, why should I have to suffer? I was like, listen, you stupid bitch, you're throwing tampons at her. That's why you have to suffer. So I do agree with you. I appreciate how dark they took it. And go ahead.
No, dark. Just the things that just the way that it escalates is pretty extreme.
One thing I will say though is one of the girls who's kind of participating in it, her name was Samantha, I want to say. When she makes her turn to be quote good unquote, it's such a 180 so quickly that you are just kind of like,
well, I would argue that because when they first started throwing like tampons at her and stuff, she very quickly went from against her to like having a change of heart, and I feel like that was near the beginning, and that kind of carried through the rest of the movie.
Yeah, that's just, I don't know. I felt that a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, but and then also in the original movie, these girls are like full on naked, which is kind of weird to see in like a 70s movie. So they're just like sitting there in showers, like, oh hey, la 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 la. Yeah, no nudity in this movie. Lame. So you have the R rating. Come on, do something with it. But you are right about the fact that as it builds to the prom, which so Sam, the girl who kind of starts showing, Carrie a little bit of compassion. She ends up having her boyfriend take Carrie to the prom instead of her, and that whole scene, it's coming, it's going to end badly, and the girl ends up in the beginning who hasn't made the turn to be good. She goes full on psychotic, like sociopath, and her escalation to being as evil she is, you're just like, damn. Yep. Like, this girl's nuts. And her boyfriend, who seems older, like, he looks like he does not belong in high school whatsoever. Their whole thing about, alright, let's get this pig's blood, and, oh, kill the pig, baby. You're just like, these two need to be locked up in a padded room. Like, it escalates pretty quickly with them. And I found that a little unbelievable. To be fair, in the original, it's actually worse. So they actually, like, toned it down for this movie, so I give them credit for that, but we do have to, if I do have a complaint, and I know I've addressed a couple, the prom itself, it didn't look like a prom. It felt very scaled down. It looked cheap, especially for, this era. It looked like an 80s prom. It felt like it should have been bigger, it should have been more. So I was a little disappointed by that. But when Carrie does unleash her powers, you are just like, oh man, y'all fucked up now. I mean, it gets dark quick, and when she just starts offing people, I mean, it's quite a sight to behold. It gets crazy in the last 20 minutes or so.
And I don't know about you, but I like that they didn't hold back on it. I feel like they could have toned it down and like not made it so gruesome, but I am actually glad that they did. That they just kind of let it play out, not like protected it. Was this rated R?
This was rated R.
Okay, yeah. I feel like if this were PG-13, it wouldn't have been as good.
I agree. One thing I will say that was a huge complaint from the first movie that this got right, which made me so happy. So the girl who ends up getting killing the pig with her boyfriend and all that, in the original, Carrie just kind of smashes him behind a dumpster, but the CG's so bad, it just kind of happens. You're just like, oh, okay, what the hell? They did all this stuff to torture, and that's all they get. In this version, she fucks with them. Like, she drags out their punishment, and you're kind of sitting there watching it. You're like, yeah, you guys had this coming. She's looking at her like, please stop, please stop. I was like, yeah, no, you need to off both of these people for being such assholes, because they really started all of this. She was just trying to go to prom, goddamn. Yeah. and he just ruined it. And I do love one of the messages of this movie where it is just like, and Sam, the girl who, like we said earlier, like takes some pity on Carrie.
Yep.
When she's testifying in court later, she says, "Look," she has one of the most profound statements, if not the most profound statement of the movie, saying, "Hey, you can only push someone so far," and it's true. Everyone has their breaking point, and and it's unfortunate that we have to hear about all these school shootings pretty much daily. It seems like now, and all this stuff, and it's like sometimes you just need to leave people alone, not be such an asshole. I mean, it's a very, simple lesson, but I think we forget it sometimes. So I think this movie was actually pretty well timed for it to come out when it did, especially with all this shit going on. So, final thoughts on this. I actually thought this was. I know some people argue, but I thought this was actually a step up from the original, and honestly, it was something like this. It kind of needed to be redone because you rewatch the original, the CG, and it's laughably bad at points. So it needed an upgrade, a fresh coat of paint, if you will. So I appreciated Chloe Grace Moretz and Julianne Moore. They played off each other so well. I think that was a really pleasant surprise. As good as actors as they both are as far as acting. I wish some of the other kids around them had been better actors because it felt like some of them were in like community theater. So I guess that would probably be a complaint I have. But yeah, being honest, man. But I'd give this a solid B. I really enjoy this. I'll probably actually buy this when it drops down a little bit in price so I can have it.
Yeah, the more I think about it, like the more I thought about it, the higher my grade went, to be honest. It's like I feel like what, I actually really like that movie because I went into it hoping it wasn't one of those like high school, it was like high school horror movies
like Twilight. Go ahead and say it's alright.
But it actually, like, Judy Greer was really great. I thought the way that she like stood up to the bullies and like I think she's a great actress. Period. I was glad that Sam's boyfriend didn't turn out to be a tool. Because like that was like, oh, I can see this coming a mile away. But then they kind of twisted that around. Yeah, I don't know if I completely bought Julianne Moore's psychopath. She was definitely crazy, and like at times she was, but I don't know if I buy her in that role completely. So one of the things I wrote down as a negative was that they Google searched. She Google searched magic powers.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, Carrie does, and I'm like, really? Like that's like. I don't know, at least have her go to a library and look it up in like an old book or something.
To be fair, she did check out books on it too.
Okay.
I mean, that is a valid point, but she did check out books. Remember, she made all those books levitate and shit.
That's true. They had some pretty good music on this.
They did, yeah.
And then I liked when she went crazy, and that was probably the best part of the movie for me, is the building up to it, and I think she played it out really well as well.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
You're great, man.
Great. I gotta go with a B+ on this one.
B+?
I enjoyed it. It wasn't a B, but I think I actually enjoyed it it's a great thriller.
Okay, dude. That's one of the higher grades you've given, actually.
Look
at you.
I've given it a couple A's.
That's true. But I mean, getting a B+ from me, that is saying something.
Yeah, and especially for a horror movie too.
Yeah. So guys, I rented this at Redbox, and I was like,
definitely worth the rent.
Yeah, I definitely would rent this again. Like I said, I'll buy this at some point.
Not necessarily scary, but just a thriller, I'd say.
It's more psychological than just like, oh, scary. But
as are many as Stephen King's.
True. But yeah, guys, go ahead, listen to this review if you haven't already, and go ahead, hit that subscribe button, guys. Have a good night.